What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing you can do for me on this channel. What it does is that it helps to make sure that those who are subscribed to the channel will indeed get their notifications, and it also helps to push this video through the YouTube algorithm as well. Secondly, if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been ghost watching this channel for quite some time now, please do me a favor and do yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms to your family and friends to inform them on this news and information. And yes, that does help to give me a slight boost in the YouTube algorithm as well. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today we are headed back to Gotham City, formerly known as New York City. And before we head to Gotham, I really have to say this. It is shameful the way in which these DNC media outlets, whether they're mainstream media outlets like MSNBC or internet outlets like Roland Martin Unfiltered, it is shameful how these DNC media outlets refuse to cover anything that has to do with the migrant crisis. It is shameful. Joe Biden has so much blood on his hands, figuratively speaking, American citizen blood on his hands, that it isn't even funny. The crime that has occurred by illegal immigrants in cities across the country, from New York to Chicago to Boston, none of this gets discussed, and it all gets swept under the radar under the bad faith argument that technically American citizens commit more crime than illegal immigrants, right? Why is that a bad faith argument, especially coming off of Biden being in office going on 4 years now? It's a bad faith argument because, as I've stated numerous times over on this channel, when it comes to major metropolitan cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, so on and so forth, we already have our own foolishness to deal with our citizen population. It is expected and accepted that in these major metropolitan cities where we live at, foolishness happens. Sometimes tragedies happen. And if you live here, that's just part of the game and you accept it. And hopefully you might live in a nicer part of town where that's not so much your reality. But what has happened, because Joe Biden made it his business to strip away all of the Trump era border protections and then lie to the American citizens as if there was nothing he can do to stop the flow of illegal immigration that he unleashed onto the general population, just to turn around with 3 weeks before a debate with Donald Trump, I believe on June 27th, to sign an executive order to literally shut down the border effectively immediately at the time that he signed the executive order. That lie and everything in between is the reason for unnecessary theft that has occurred by illegal immigrants, unnecessary loss of life, and unnecessary assault that we've seen. We have now in these major metropolitan cities, on top of the foolishness that comes with our citizen population, have imported foolishness coming from across the border. And these are people who otherwise would not have been violated. These are people who otherwise would not have lost their lives, had their personal possessions stolen, or had been assaulted had those Trump era policies still been in place. But because Biden made it his point to strip those away and then lie to you as if there was nothing he can do, this has now resulted into the loss of life of American citizens, as well as the assaults on American citizens and theft on American citizens. There was even a situation at a border town. I did a story on this where a border town, I believe it was in Texas, the crime went up 5,000%. 5,000%. And in that one particular area, that one particular border town, there was, I believe it was a woman who passed away because in the middle of her health emergency, we will say, They dialed 911, but you have to remember a lot of these border towns, they're small towns. So they don't have that many ambulances, you can say, to begin with. But under normal circumstances, they don't need an abundance of ambulances and health service providers like that in a small town. But the point is this: in this town, the woman that was in a health emergency to which their family dialed 911, the ambulance never showed up to come get this woman, to which she ended up passing away because all of their health service providers and ambulances were too busy at the border attending to this mass illegal immigration that has occurred because of Joe Biden. And because of that, and because they were away dealing with the madness at the border, because of that, this woman passed away, who otherwise would most likely possibly still be alive. So now here we are in Gotham City, and we have this here that I have on a screen. Fight between migrant squatters. Here we go with the squatter stuff again. It's amazing how the crooked Gotham City Council just refused to pass any meaningful law to protect the New York City citizens who own property. But I don't want to get thrown off. Fight between migrant squatters and fed up building residents, legal residents, sparked fatal NYC double homicide. Let's get into it. A Bronx shooting that left 2 people dead erupted from a heated dispute between migrant squatters, Biden's migrants, and fed up legal residents of the apartment building, with the migrant suspect now on the run, police said. Jose, I believe that's what his name is, but whatever. Josue Ruben Silva, 21 years old, who already has a lengthy rap sheet, by the way, is being sought by cops in the May 24th fatal shooting. And for the record, because I guess it does matter, I know I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but his first name is spelled Josue. For those of you who want to look this up yourself. And also, as per usual, this article link will be in the description box below for you to read for yourself as well, which I suggest that you do and share this article out with your family and friends, as well as this video, right? But let's get back into the article, into the news. Silva was among a group of Biden's migrants that had been squatting inside the building when one long-term legal resident, I believe the name is Clarita Daniels, 44 years old, told her pals that one of the asylum seekers disrespected her. Let's make an amendment to that. When she told her pals that one of the illegal immigrants disrespected her, NYPD Chief Detective Joseph Kenny told reporters Tuesday. So basically, what you have now is the older residents, legal residents from the building that have lived there for some time come to her aid, Kenny said. The new arrivals, they run into the building, they come back with their crew that is armed with bats, knives, and all sort of weapons. I repeat, the new arrivals, illegal immigrants that are squatting, they run into the building and they come back with their crew, gang, that is armed with bats, knives, and all sorts of weapons. One tenant, Everett Slade, I believe the name is, got into fisticuffs with one of the migrants who got the worst of the exchange, which is when Silva pulled out a gun and opened fired, the chief said. So one of the tenants was getting the better of one of Biden's illegal immigrants. Basically, he was putting hands and feet on him, right? Despite the fact that they came out with weapons, bats, knives, armed to the T, he was still getting hands and feet put on him. And because he was getting hands and feet put on him, Silva, this guy up here, decided, hey, let me do what I do best. I'm going to pull out my weapon and fire on this man. And this is how that all turned out. Slade was shot in the arm, while Daniels and another man, identified as Justin Lewis, were shot in the chest and mortally wounded. Silva then allegedly fled the scene and is now the subject of a manhunt. Kenny said tension between tenants and the squatters had been building up, leading to the shooting. So this tension has been going on for a while now between the illegal immigrant squatters and the legal residents of that building. This has been happening for a while now. And because New York City Council is so corrupt, they are so corrupt and are so pro-legal immigrant, despite the crime, despite the unnecessary loss of life, despite the assaults, they don't care. They refuse to lift the sanctuary city status. They refuse to even make a minor amendment that was proposed by Eric Adams, which Eric Adams proposed that there should be an amendment to the sanctuary city status law, not removed, but an amendment that states that if an illegal immigrant commits a violent crime, he must immediately be turned over to ICE. That sounds like common sense to me. They wouldn't even do that. They wouldn't even do that. And because of this, we see tension building up between those who shouldn't be there and those who are legally allowed to be there, lead to those who are legally allowed to be there, American citizens, leading them to lose their life to those who really have no legal claim to be here in the United States. This is really sad. This is really sad and unfortunate. And I can't even begin to wrap my mind around how frustrated and upset I'd be, enraged I'd be, if one of my family members lost their lives to Biden's migrants, because it would have been an unnecessary loss of life that didn't need to happen if Biden, excuse me, if Biden would simply have closed the borders to begin with, or if he would have just never opened them to begin with. This is all unnecessary, sad, and unfortunate. Witness statements say that these migrant guys are taking over several apartments in the building. I repeat, witness statements say that these migrant guys are taking over several apartments in the building, he said. They've been living there. They've been living there the last 6 months. They broke into abandoned vacant apartments. Law enforcement sources said Silva, who has been busted on half a dozen times. I repeat, wow, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Law enforcement sources said Silva, who has been busted a half a dozen times this year on robbery, theft, and gun charges. How do you get busted half a dozen times on robbery, theft, and gun charges, and you're still walking the streets? I know why. When you're one of Biden's migrants, an illegal immigrant, you're an untouchable in New York City, as well as places like Chicago, Los Angeles, and so on and so forth. American citizens, on the other hand, robbery, theft, and gun charges, and you're just one man doing all this, yeah, you're going to jail. Biden's migrants, you get to get out of jail free pass no matter what you do. But I digress. It continues to read, is also a person of interest in a series of migrant mobbed charges. A source close to the investigation told the Post that Silva crossed the border with, a source close to the investigation told the Post that Silva crossed the U.S. border with Mexico illegally in May of 2023 and was later caught and sent to a shelter. But the fugitive migrant could be using an alias and may actually be just 17 years old. Wow. So we don't even really know who this guy is. Is he 21 years old or is he 17 years old? And is Silva his actual name or is it not? We don't know. He's a ghost criminal. He's literally walking around this country as a ghost. Outside of the photo that we have of him, there's no real method of tracking him down, because we don't know his real name. We don't know his real age. We don't have his date of birth. There's no nothing. The guy is effectively a ghost. That's what he is. He's a ghost. And it's really sad and unfortunate that things have turned out this way in New York City, which is now Gotham City. And we're also seeing that there is a consistent pattern of those who are coming here to commit crime that find themselves on the other ends of shootings as well. They're not just robbing and they're not just participating in theft. The last news story that I did in Gotham City, where you had an illegal immigrant Venezuelan migrant who shot at 2 police officers, he too was being investigated, and someone who had participated in a multitude of robberies and thefts, to which when the NYPD caught up with him, that led to a chase on his moped in Queens, to which he said, "You're not going to take me alive." And he ended up shooting at the 2 cops. Both of the cops survived, right? Good for them. But the point is that none of this stuff should be happening to begin with. And that's the point. None of this should be a thing to begin with. But it is, unfortunately. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I want to thank you all for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. And also don't forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. The link to my Telegram is in the description box below. It will be pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. And until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.